Well, hello there, lads and gals. Welcome back to the channel. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Got my green on today, and hopefully this video will help all of you all to earn more green or have a more green mindset, not in the sense of environmental, but in the sense of returns. I think we all got that. So I'm going to discuss the dividend snowball effect today, which I see a lot of videos on YouTube about this. And I figured since I did a video on QYLD and the phenomenal dividend that it pays, I thought I would build off of that because I recently bought QYLD in my Roth IRA. I bought about 210 shares, but the example I'm going to go over today, I'll just say 200 shares just to keep it even. So I've got a pretty phenomenal example of the compounding effect of the snowball effect when you invest and you reinvest your dividends. And I'm going to show you what it can do. I have a chart and all that. But before I get into the bulk of that, let me just go over an article here to just outline what the dividend snowball effect is. So using dividend snowball investing to grow your investment portfolio and income. With patience, you can use dividend snowball investing to compound your way to enough income to pay your bills and become financially independent. That's like the FIRE movement. Fire yourself from your job, right? No, stands for financially independent and retire early. So think of a snowball. It gains momentum over time and it literally snowballs, hence the name. And compound interest. So these two concepts go hand in hand to grow your dividends and to where they snowball and to where you keep reinvesting the dividends into your original investment shares, and you get new shares, and those new shares produce new shares of the dividends. It's like doing the work for you. That's why they call compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. And really early on in this channel, I did a really good video on compound interest. If you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend it. It's very informative, very educational. And that's, if you can understand how compound interest works, you can understand finance and you can understand why investing is so important. It'll be like a light bulb going off in your head. So if you're building a dividend portfolio for monthly income, this growth strategy will help you progress towards your goal with time and patience. There's the snowballs. Okay, so this article goes over, it mentions Dave Ramsey, one of my favorite financial people. Like I said, I agree with most of what he says, but not everything. So dividend snowball investing is based on Dave Ramsey's debt snowball method. So he has a debt snowball method. In a debt snowball, you tackle your debt by paying off smallest balances and then use that money towards your next. So that's interesting. We're not going to go over all of that. So 20 shares of the Coca-Cola company, if you have those and take the cash instead of reinvesting, each year you'll receive a slightly larger dividend payout. And I'm going to illustrate how that works for you now with QYLD. And because this dividend is not your norm, 14%, I have some other ones that I'm going to plug in once I go over this one. But take a 30-year horizon. A lot of retirement advice on a lot of retirement strategies base themselves on a 30-year horizon. Now, when I first started investing, I would say dividends, I was a really big fan of dividends, and they were more or less the bread and butter of my strategy, or a big part of it. But now, while I still do it, I've gotten away from it a bit, and I mainly use the dividends. I don't necessarily reinvest them into the same stocks, because after the Rona, when a lot of the stocks dropped and so many other stocks were at a great buying price, I turned off my dividend reinvestment and I used the dividends that I was getting to buy into other stocks. But in this example, this is just purely putting the dividends back in to the original fund, which it will also work great for you over the long term. It's a great strategy. So take a 30-year horizon. So starting out on QYLD, 200 original shares. And if you take the 14% dividend, for example, each year, so you would go from 200 shares to almost 228 shares in the second year, which in cash, so it's a $2.79 dividend approximately. So in cash, this would be almost $559. And then in year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5. And so just in 5 years, you've gone from 200 shares to 337 shares. You've gone from $558 in annual payout to $942. And this is without even buying more of it with your future IRA contributions. This is just rolling off of an initial $4,000 investment. So, and you see when you get to year 10, and this is because of the compounding effect. By the time you get to year 10, you've got 649 shares, almost $1,800. And then in this column over here, this is just adding the dividends together. So you see adding year 1, year 2, and then cumulatively year 3, adding all of these equals this. See? So each year you're adding on, and then you see how by year 15, you're going from $1,200, $100 a month in dividends to $24,000. But over here, if you look at column H, this is just assuming that you're not reinvesting the dividends and you're getting the same payout every year. So adding this up, by year 15, instead of 24,000, you would only have a third of that. So look at that. This not reinvesting the dividends cost you $16,000. And it gets even more profound, as you can see, because here's where the snowball starts to roll and starts to get huge. So by year 20, you've gone from 24,000, you've doubled in 5 years. And this is partly because this is such a high dividend payout rate. So in 5 years, you've doubled your annual income on this to $50,000, which now you're approaching median US income. Remember, like I said in another video, I don't necessarily believe what they say that it's like 68,000 or probably 70,000 by now. Most people, the average salary, the average middle class salary is not at $70,000. I don't care what anybody says. You can take all the numbers and skew them all you want to. And what happens, like I say, the top 1% skew that whole, when you take the sample, basically the data sample as a whole of income, you divide it, you come up with a median point that spits out 70,000. But I can tell you the true average income, $70,000 is not an average income, but I digress again. So look at this in year 20, $50,000 versus $11,000. So now you've increased your dividend payout 5-fold by reinvesting, and that's phenomenal. And it keeps on, again, snowball, it keeps on getting better. So then by year 25, look at that. You doubled again, $101,000. So the past 5 years, twice over, you've doubled. So now year 30's got to be really exciting, right? Can we double again? Just about 200,000 in this example. So actually, this column is the annual payout, and this is just your cumulative dividends. So don't get too ahead of yourself here. I misspoke a bit. This column, so 24,000 a year, and I'm adding together in this column. This is your cumulative dividend payout over here versus this, if you're just adding the $558. Now let's look at this on a chart. And this is really profound. So let's go over to the chart here. So we've got a range of $0 to 200,000, which is our cumulative. This is the dividend snowball effect. And I had to enlarge it so that you could see all the numbers here. So you can see year 1, year 5, year 10. The numbers are kind of clustered together here, but you start to see in a chart form the snowball effect. So you start to see the gray line, which is the compounded line, and then just the simple, basically the simple interest line in blue. And you start to see the separation. It's doing this over time. It's going like this from here to here. So then by the time, and you see how it becomes like an exponential curve, like a J curve. So by the time you end year 30, if you just take the same dividend payout versus the compounding, you see the difference here. It's a huge gap. So that is, in a sense, the dividend snowball effect. Now, because 14% is an unrealistic dividend, and of course, here's the thing that this model doesn't take into consideration a few things. This is really an overly simplistic model. It doesn't take into consideration changes in the dividend, which happen. I mean, a lot of companies grow their dividends over time, and I'll probably do a follow-up video where I'll illustrate a company growing their dividend by a certain percent and how that enhances it. but a 14% dividend is going to offset a lot of that because, and the reason that this QYLD ETF is at 14% is because it has dropped. When the price drops, like I went over in my last video, the percent dividend return is going to increase. That's why a lot of times, like I said, if you don't think critically and really think carefully about it, you could just Google, okay, top dividend paying ETFs, and then you'll come up with one that pays like 20%. And that's because it's dropped so much. So you don't necessarily want to get into that just because of the dividend. So, but let's take one, AT&T, which right now they're at 9% because the stock keeps dropping. But if I was to plug that into this model here, it would be the same effect. So instead of this, if I was just to plug in $2.08, this is what it would be. So if I take this all the way here, oh, come on, Excel. Don't do this to me now. So if I, let's see here. All right, come on, Excel. All right, forget it, it's not going to work. Anyway, you could plug these numbers in for this, and you see how it changed this column here. Well, that's because of this, but anyway, I mean, you can do the same thing I did with QYLD for AT&T and for IBM. IBM pays a $6.50 dividend per share, but that's because the stock trades at $130 per share. AT&T is $2.08, but they're actually going to cut it. So anyway, with that, I think you get the gist of what I was, what I wanted to convey here. And I'll do follow-up videos on these. Let's see if there's any other nuggets of wisdom we can extract from the article here. Deciding to reinvest your dividends or not. For the dividend snowball to grow faster, additional shares need to be created or purchased in addition to annual payout increases. So like I said, you can accelerate this if you keep purchasing shares on top of this. You can accelerate it further using automated reinvestment versus manually purchasing. Yeah, you can do that too. So, and then of course, dividends are taxable. That's another thing. I mean, it's kind of annoying, but it makes sense really because dividends are income, and the more income you have, what happens? The more you're taxed. So with that being said, hope that was valuable to you. Hope you enjoyed that. Just kind of take this in here at the end, 24,000 in annual dividends off of an original investment of $4,000 is phenomenal. Again, going from $558 in the first year all the way to 24,000. That's $2,000 a month. So that's a nice supplement to your retirement at minimum. So with that being said, thanks so much for tuning in. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks. Take care.